Hello, and welcome to the movie universe. I'm your host, Movie Fan. Well, it's Halloween, and today I decided to do something very special. I decided to talk about The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And no, I will not be talking about the story itself because you already know. So instead, I'll be talking about what was the Headless Horseman, or better yet, I should say, who was the Headless Horseman? Because truth be told, I'm positive that the Headless Horseman was, in fact, Ichabod Crane's rival, Brom Bones. Now, in order to state my case, I will be covering four versions of the story. That would be the book itself, the legendary Disney version, the Wishbone version, and of course, the Tim Burton version from 1999. And it will only be at the key point, and that would be the Headless Horseman and some of the parts leading up to it. We'll start off with the legendary story by Washington Irving. In the book, Brom Bones definitely sees Ichabod Crane as his enemy, because he is getting very friendly with Katrina, who he is in love with. And in the book, he pulls some pretty mean pranks on him to try to make him look bad in her eyes. And in the end, he ends up telling the story of the Headless Horseman because it was no secret that Ichabod was very superstitious. And of course, he tells the story of the Headless Horseman. Ichabod rides home, as we all know, and he has an encounter with the Headless Horseman. What a coincidence. To which he goes across the bridge, which Brom said that when one person who was being chased by the horseman went over the horseman just disappeared in a flash of light. When Ichabod crosses the bridge, he gets a pumpkin thrown at him and it hits him, and he's never seen or heard from again. Brom marries Katrina, and it's mentioned in the book that there was some suspicion that maybe Brom might have had something to do with Ichabod's disappearance, because every time the subject was talked about in front of him, he would just laugh, especially when they brought up the part about the pumpkin that was found. So obviously Washington Irving hinted at the idea, or at least left it open to interpretation, that Brom could have in fact been the Headless Horseman. Because think about this, folks. Isn't it a little too coincidental that he tells the story of the Headless Horseman and then all of a sudden he runs into him? What a coincidence. And not to mention his reaction to his disappearance and mentioning of that pumpkin makes Brom burst in laughter. Very cagey. That does suggest that he did something, doesn't it? Okay, next we got the legendary Disney version. Ichabod is very popular, especially with Katrina, and Brom is very jealous of him, and of course he pulls pranks on him, and he sees that Ichabod is very superstitious, and he tells the story of the Headless Horseman. And of course, he runs into the horseman. He's been chased like crazy by that headless rider on the black horse. And in the end, Brom marries Katrina. And nothing was really talked about that, except for the theory as to, is he alive? Was he spirited away by the horseman? We'll never know. Now, with the Disney version, there is actually some evidence to support the theory that Brom might have actually been the Headless Horseman. It's not exactly a very big chunk of evidence, but I think it fits because, again, what a coincidence that he's telling this story. And when you're seeing him demonstrate as the Headless Horseman during that song, he's doing a very good job. In fact, he did too good of a job of imitating the Headless Horseman, and all he used was a white sheet and a chair. And of course, he also rides a very big black horse, just like the Headless Horseman does in this story. The Wishbone version, of course, tells a bit of a different story. Brom doesn't seem to pull any pranks on Ichabod, or so it seems, because there's a scene where Brom and another man go to Ichabod and tell him that he needs to go to the schoolhouse immediately, something's happened. And of course, he said that he'll gladly stay with Katrina while Ichabod is gone. And of course, Ichabod and the other man go to the schoolhouse. They see that it's been kind of torn all topsy-turvy, as he put it. Now, they don't say that Brom had anything to do with it, but I think we know better. And there's one big twist in this story, and that is the fact that Brom does not tell the tale of the Headless Horseman. In fact, an elderly couple tells the tale of the Headless Horseman, while Brom is just standing there scoffing at the idea like, oh, utter nonsense. And just like in every version, he is chased across the bridge and the pumpkin is thrown at him, and Ichabod is never seen or heard from again. A couple of the townspeople find the pumpkin with a bell that Ichabod had worn. And Brom is riding through the path saying,
Convince him of what?
Now, even though we can't really prove that Brom had anything to do with that incident at the schoolhouse, we do have reason to suspect it was probably him. And let's not forget, even though he does not tell the story of the Headless Horseman, he was still standing there listening to it. And he definitely noticed Ichabod's interest in the story. So, if anything, it definitely was a moment for him to go, I think I might have a way to get rid of him. But there's one bigger piece of evidence to support that he is the Headless Horseman. When Ichabod crosses the bridge and we see the horseman up close, the horse has a very interesting object on his chest. And when Brom is riding past, well, what do you know? His horse has that exact same object. Coincidence? I think not. Now, so far, 3 exact times, they're hinting at the idea that it's Brom Bones that really is the Headless Horseman. Now, the only exception, of course, would be the Tim Burton version. For this story, obviously we know it starts off like this. Ichabod is set to investigate a series of murders. He is not the school teacher. In fact, he's actually a policeman in this story. Or a CSI, take your pick. Anyway, he's there to investigate the murder, and he's told about the Headless Horseman, not by Brom, but by the top people in the town, because they believe the Headless Horseman is responsible for the murders. And when he first meets Katrina and Brom makes it very clear he does not like him, just because he accidentally walked in on that little circle and got a kiss from Katrina. And in a short time, Ichabod is chased by the Headless Horseman, wielding a pumpkin. And just like in the story, he is hit with the pumpkin. However, the difference here is Ichabod is not disappeared. He's stunned a little, and he watches the horseman ride off. And we see that it is, in fact, Brom Bones pulling a vicious prank on him. Now, the only difference with the Tim Burton story is, after the prank, we realize that, yes, the Headless Horseman is in fact real and committing murders. But obviously, Tim Burton definitely went on the idea that Brom was definitely the one behind it all, at least before the real one showed up. So when you read the book and watch all these versions of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, it is quite obvious that the Headless Horseman is really no ghost. Instead, he is in fact Brom Bones pulling a very vicious prank on him. Now, the big question I know a lot of people are going to wonder is, did he kill Ichabod or did he scare him off? Well, obviously with the Tim Burton version, he didn't scare him off. He scared him, but he didn't scare him off. And either way, the real horseman shows up, so that doesn't count. But with the original 3, well, that we will never know. They hint at the idea that he was still alive, or maybe that the horseman, scared him off. We'll never know. Anyway, I think it's a safe bet that the Headless Horseman is, in fact, Brom Bones. This is Movie Fan wishing you a happy Halloween.
With a hip, hip, and a clippity-clop, he's out looking for a head to swap. So don't try to figure out a plan. You can't reason with a headless man. Man, I'm getting out of here.